Here's a comic that I got out of a dollar bin a few months ago, and I wasn't, I don't think, really even aware of its existence until I saw it. Weird Love, issue number 21. Now, I kind of recognized it right away as being one of the IDW reprint series that Craig Yoe's Yoe Books had put together for IDW, um, starting in like 2012 till around 2018. They did a few series for IDW. So before we get to Weird Love, let me show you what I was familiar with. This is Haunted Horror number 1, which was a horror series, so, similar format as Weird Love. But this actually came out earlier. Weird Love debuted in 2014, I believe, and Haunted Horror debuted in 2012. So it was 2 years earlier. So this sort of started it off. They were also doing a reprint series of Popeye comics from like the 1950s, and that series ran for 65 issues or something like that. Haunted Horror ended up running about 35 issues, and Weird Love ran 24 issues, which is really surprising to me because, I was unaware of this comic. But I had seen Haunted Horror on the shelves of a local comic shop back then. And this is 2012, like I said, is when it came out. And so I was still buying new comics at that point. But I was starting to phase things out. I had closed some of my pull lists. I think I didn't have anything DC on the pull list at that point, and I had only like 2 Marvel titles. And then I ended up closing my pull list in 2013. So there was a local comic shop a different shop than I had the pull list that I would occasionally stop at. And when I saw this on the shelf, it was only $3.99. I was like, oh, it's reprints of 1950s horror comics. But, they were just scans, taken from scans of the printed comics. So the quality wasn't always that great. But, I'd seen worse. Back in the late 80s, Eternity Comics had a comic called 50s Terror, which was just like black and white Xeroxes, basically, of the comics. Well, this is a Simon & Kirby story here. So they'd have cool artists. But at the time, I didn't really appreciate it. I missed issue number 2. I bought issue number 3. Same type of thing. Issue number 4, I bought it when it came out. So that says $3.99. So maybe it was $3.99 is what the price on it was. And issue number 5. And this is the last one I bought. And this is 2013. So like I said, this is when I was sort of phasing out of comics. So I think I either didn't see any more on the shelf, or else I just kind of was like, well, okay, that'll do me. Because I don't think I actually even read any of these haunted horror comics. I don't think I've still read them. I maybe read 1 or 2 stories, but I don't think I sat down and read a whole issue. I did, however, sit down and read all of this. And it took me a while to get around to it. The first story that interested me was actually at the back when I was flipping through it, and I just thought it was a funny scenario. They Called Me Different, and it's a woman who's like, go ahead and laugh. Now you know why I didn't want you to meet my parents. They're freaks and a sideshow. And he says, stop that, Ava. You're hurting the 3 people in the world that love you the most. So I just thought that was kind of a ridiculous, romance premise. But it turns out the whole issue is themed around circus performers, which is kind of interesting. That a lot of these things, like I said, you can just go online, and people have scanned these public domain comics, from companies that are no longer publishing comics. They went out of business and so forth. But here they had not only, just scanned them, and it looks like they look actually pretty good. I don't know if they got better at it or they were just using particular stories that looked pretty good. But these actually look really nice. They probably look as good as the original comics do. They're printed on a sort of matte finish, so it's not like it doesn't overpower your eyes, even though it's the color is really good. So occasionally you'll have, you'll see all those dots, that are typical of old comics. But you know, and think some little cover, coloring anomalies or whatever. But that was typical of the old comics. So anyway, so the nice part about it is that not only is there good reproduction, you know, from taken from scanned comics, so you don't have to complain about the recoloring and things like that. Plus, it's on matte paper, so it's not too overpowering. People don't like it when it's on glossy and it looks just too, you know, too bright. It sort of this mimics the look of the original comic. But the nice thing is that it's curated. You know, when you're just looking at scans of, or even like a facsimile edition, you're getting the comic exactly as it was. The bad part about it is sometimes there might be some gems in there that, and then there's a bunch of comics, a bunch of stories that are less appealing. Well, here they've sort of curated it so all these circus themed stories from different publishers, different titles, they're all in one issue, which is kind of nice. The bad and the stories are, you know, are enjoyable to read, and I like them. The funny thing though is that even though I've read this whole comic, and it, like I said, it took me a little while to read it, but I would just read like a story at a time. They're not very memorable, so I can't even remember the details of some of these stories. You know, it's after a while they just all kind of run together. So this one is sort of memorable because it has the snake woman who's on the cover, who's like hypnotizing the man. You know, so she has lost her love because, you know, the snake woman has mesmerized him. But anyways, so like I said, it's not very memorable, but it is enjoyable. You know, it's basically what comics used to be back in the 50s, which was nothing to analyze, nothing to, you know, obsess about. They were just a slight entertainment. You would read them and then go on with your day, and you wouldn't necessarily remember them. Occasionally you might remember a story and think, oh, what was that story? But you know, and then there would be some ads at the back, and that's it. So I don't really recommend it. Oh, and also they had I do recommend it, but I don't really recommend it as something to be like that I would necessarily have to get all 24 issues of the series. I mean, I'd be happy to if they were in the dollar bin, but it's not something I particularly would seek out because, like I said, they're kind of forgettable. But they did reprint these in book form, so these hardback collections just reprint these issues. But again, I'm a fan of you know, periodicals, they're actual magazines. So so I wouldn't really be interested in, you know, hardcover collections of these things. And especially if each issue has its own theme. It kind of is, I mean, I assume it is, I don't know. But this issue is. So anyways, both Weird Love and Haunted Horror are something that, you know, I may have to end up reading these. And like I said, I appreciated the reproduction quality and so forth. You know, they're kind of not essential works. They're fun, you know, but they're not going to be up there as like EC comics and things like that. The structuring, the curating them into various themed issues, like I said, it has its good and bad points because it is interesting that it's curated like that, you know, that you get these stories put together that were not intended to be put together, so it makes it seem like a cohesive whole. But the bad part, I guess, is if you're interested in a certain title, it may appear like this is just a hodgepodge from different publishers, different titles, and so forth. So from a historical perspective, in that way, it takes these things out of context, you know, puts them in a new context. But like I said, it is amazing to me that a romance comic, even, you know, though it's focusing on the weird, you know, romance comics, it's amazing to me that a romance comic reprint series lasted for 24 issues. This is issue number 21. and that I was totally unaware of it. So, anyways, that's it for this review. Like I said, I recommend it, but I don't think it's highly recommended. It's something that if you happen to see it in a dollar bin, definitely pick it up. It's something of interest. But I can't see myself necessarily seeking out more issues of it. If I happen to find them in the back issue bins and they're cheap, I'll pick them up. But same with Haunted Horror. But it's not something that I particularly would seek out. But they are enjoyable for the time that you read them. For the moment that you're sitting there reading them, they're enjoyable. Afterwards, you might look back on it and go, did I read that one? Oh, yeah, I did. I totally forgot what it was about. So that's what it's like. Some good old-fashioned romance comics with a sort of weird horror bent to them. Thanks for watching.